Everyone knows Black Ops 1 is awesome, but what made it so good? Call of Duty has quickly become a household name. Gamers of all ages have sunk hours and hours into these games all around the world. After the beautiful story of Call of Duty 4, after the passionate tales of World at War, after the utter perfection that was Modern Warfare 2, Treyarch was tasked with developing a game that stood up to the as of yet untarnished name of the Call of Duty franchise. Surely they won't be able to live up to the hype again. Surely it'll be up in the air whether the game stands up to its predecessors. But as many of you are well aware, the peak of the Call of Duty franchise somehow continues. Is it a peak if it's just continually perfect? Constantly amazing? No, I guess not. The stretch of Call of Duty we've been journeying through has somehow reinvented the word plateau. Usually that would mean the games are stale, boring, and unnoteworthy, but not Call of Duty. Black Ops 1 takes the Call of Duty formula, adds several types of drugs, shakes it up, and then somehow delivers a beautifully cohesive story of unforgettable mayhem that still leaves the smartest of us scratching our heads. Set during the Cold War, the game boldly breaks away from the Modern Warfare style of open warfare and instead tells the story of CIA operative Alex Mason. The game is a mind-bending tale of espionage, brainwashing, secrecy, and twists and turns like we've never seen before. Once again, the development team outdid themselves in every aspect of this game. The storytellings, the voice acting, the gameplay, all that to say Black Ops 1 stood up to the gigantic expectations that had been set for it and successfully delivered an unforgettable experience. Quick note for our new friends, this is a retrospective series where we go through mission by mission, talking through each one, and at the end we'll give it a ranking overall. We've already done the entire OG Modern Warfare story, and World at War as well, which as we'll see has some pretty interesting tie-ins with this game. Last thing, these do take a ton of time to make, so I'd appreciate it a lot if you hit that sub button if you do enjoy. We did just hit 1,000 subscribers, and I appreciate every single one of you. Leave a comment letting me know what you think, and as always, I'm glad you're here, and let's get into it.
5, 7, 2, 1.
This game takes a completely different approach to storytelling that has never been seen before in a Call of Duty game from the second you load in. Literally, even the menu screen is telling a story. You're strapped to a chair with several consoles surrounding you, while your interrogator stands behind some ominous opaque glass and barrages you with questions through a microphone with some intense distortion. It lets you know immediately that this game will be unique. The story won't be quite as cut and dry. Think of the Modern Warfare series like a classic movie, like Shawshank Redemption or Star Wars. Wonderful story, easy to follow, and some amazing characters. Now, Black Ops is a bit more like Memento or Interstellar. Both are absolute masterpieces, but in a completely different style. You're fed bits and pieces of information, not just about the story, but about yourself. You aren't sure yet what the hell is going on, where you are, who's asking these questions, or how you got here. But as the interrogation presses on, you're forced to remember. Your name is Alex Mason, and you're a CIA agent. That's all you get. And with that, the first mission begins, with your small undercover squad being tasked with the assassination of Fidel Castro. Your memories begin at a bar in Cuba, with your squad, Woods and Bowman. After gathering intel from your informant, the Cuban police force quickly moves in to put a stop to your plans. With no tutorial or real intro to fighting, you're put right in the thick of it, but most of us are pretty familiar with Call of Duty at this point. The game definitely has a different feel to it from Modern Warfare. It feels grittier somehow, the bullets feel heavier, and the attachments obviously aren't nearly as advanced as in the Modern Warfare series. You use your grenade launcher to take out the police force before they can get to cover, and the differences only grow the more you play. The violence and gore is at an all-time high. There's blood everywhere, and there are even some limbs severed from bodies in some cases. The graphics do a wonderful job of transporting you back in time while also still being high quality. In seconds, this game has its own identity established. After some pretty easy fighting, you hop in to take the wheel of a car, and you get a brief glimpse back to present time, still strapped to that chair, as your interrogators lead you through the memory with their questions. You load back into the compound, and now the graphics really start to shine here. It's so impressive how good they look, while still making you feel like you're really there in the 1960s. I'm not really sure what it is about it, but modern games that go back in time just haven't gotten this aspect right in my opinion. The graphics look way too fresh and new to fit the time period, but somehow Black Ops 1 got it just right over 10 years ago. Back to the gameplay, you fight your way through the compound, slowly making your way to Castro. I love how many different weapons you get to use throughout this story, and they did such a good job giving each one its own personality, which is yet another thing that I feel like more current Call of Duty really struggle with. You and your squad make easy work of the resistance in the compound, and you get a few slow-mo breach and clear sequences that will never not be a good time. Finally, you make it to the end of the road, and blow the doors open to find Castro.
still protects him?
This sequence alone does such a great job shedding light into so many aspects of the story. The woman picking up that gun shows that the developers won't shy away from making the player uncomfortable. Wood's reaction, taking out the woman but being pissed about it, tells us that he won't hesitate to do what's necessary, but he still does have morals. After taking Castro out, you make a stand waiting for reinforcements outside the compound, and it becomes clear that this game won't be a walk in the park. I was only playing on regular difficulty, and it felt like every time I showed an inch of my forehead above cover, I was getting shot at from 3 different directions, and all that from enemies that were head glitching sandbags, so it was impossible to get them back. After meeting up with your reinforcements, you make a run for it to a hangar to take off in a plane, and you get to take control of an M60 that absolutely shreds the enemies. But there's some trouble on the runway, and your character makes a decision that will change his life forever.
Runway's clear. No choice, Woods. You knew what I signed up for. Got me fine. Let's go. Get out of here.
What an insane ending to a first mission. Who would have thought that Call of Duty could ever do deceit so well? And I really am impressed with how good this story still holds up to this day. It turns out the real Castro was somewhere else, and you only killed a double. Dragovich and the Russians knew you would be there, and they're teaming up with Castro. Your character is given as a gift by Castro to the Russians, and you're sent to an iconic prison in Russia, Vorkuta. Honestly, as far as first missions go, I don't think there's anything better so far in the series. It set the tone for how the game will go perfectly. The gameplay was a nice and simple intro to the game's mechanics, and it set up nearly all the main characters in the story very well. Back in the interrogation room, they drill you on the details of Vorkuta, and finally, Mason mentions Viktor Reznov, an iconic character from World at War who makes a huge return in this game. The first mission was amazing, and the second is even better. You flash back to Vorkuta in the depths of a mine that they used to hold their prisoners, with Reznov landing a barrage of punches on your character. It turns out the beatdown was all part of the plan, Reznov's plan, to break out of the inescapable Vorkuta mines. With Reznov's iconic and dramatic lines making their return, an amazing setting, and a wide variety of gameplay to come, you're in for an unforgettable experience, and what is arguably this game's magnum opus. Reznov secures the keys from the guards, which you find to be step 1 in his complex plan. Your fellow prisoners fill you in on the rest of the plan.
This is step 1! Secure the keys! No!
And it becomes clear just how organized this uprising is. You fight your way to the elevator, using whatever weapons you can get your hands on to complete step 2. Ascend from darkness. But a plan of this scale will not be without its losses, and you have to watch as dozens of your comrades get mowed down around you by the prison guards above. You take cover behind a minecart and pick off any guards that peek around, while Sergei and Reznov push their way forward. The makeshift weapons the prisoners use are pretty awesome, and it seems like an obvious choice, but they could have easily fallen victim to just putting a perfectly placed stash of loaded rocket launchers that your team just happens upon, rather than taking the time to make all these DIY weapons, which undoubtedly would have taken you out of the immersion of the mission. At the top of the guard tower, you get to briefly take over the mortar slingshot and rain fire onto the guards below as you see waves of your comrades start to swarm the courtyard area. Meanwhile, at the bottom, Sergei has tore open the doors to reveal an arsenal of weapons for your allies. Now you take the fight to the guards. Pushing to another tower, you pick up another makeshift weapon to complete step 5, skewer the winged beast. After some more fighting, a reinforced door threatens to put a pause on the uprising. Sergei's death hits hard, but you don't have time to mourn. The guards are closing in on your position, and they introduce a new pseudo-juggernaut type enemy that takes nearly a whole magazine of ammo just to take them down. You hold off waves of enemies, as Reznov uses a torch to get through a door to complete step 6, wield a fist of iron. With the death machine in hand, the guards don't stand a chance. You're a walking killing machine, but just as you finally start to believe in your escape, the guards get clever and send in tear gas. Somehow, Reznov gets you both to a garage with some bikes to make your dramatic escape. Similar to the snowmobile chase Heist in MW2, you ride the bikes and take out guards with a shotgun using one hand, and finally you make the final leap to freedom, the last step in Reznov's plan. But not everything works out in the end. Reznov is stuck driving the truck and can't make it onto the train, so he's taken back into captivity all over again. Back to the present, Mason tells the interrogators that it was the last time that he sees Reznov, at least for a little while. This mission was a beauty. Reznov's character is just amazing as always, the voice acting, the lines, everything about it. Finding your way out of a prison is a very clever and interesting change to the usual dynamic that Call of Duty is used to. And the developers really let their creativity show here with all the different steps in the plan. 2 missions in, and there's no question that both were awesome. As usual, during this golden era of Call of Duty, Black Ops 1 doesn't ever stop delivering greatness. Back to the present, your interrogator is curious about how the CIA could trust you after escaping Vorkuta. It seemed likely that after all that time in a Russian prison, you could be compromised. And even your friend Reznov was a communist, so it seemed pretty likely. But Mason didn't break. Now you're introduced to Jason Hudson, Mason's new CIA handler, who takes you to the Pentagon. The US wants to take out Dragovich, the Russian you were gifted to earlier that put you in Vorkuta. This mission is really just a semi-controllable cutscene, but they use it to set up the rest of the story very well. You get in a limo, headed for the Pentagon with Hudson, and meet some important US officials that fill you in on Dragovich.
He has no fear, no conscience, no weakness. This is Nikita Dragovich. I believe you two have already met.
When do I kill him?
We're lucky to have you back, Mason.
You stroll through the Pentagon with a few flashes here and there, hinting at something maybe being off in Mason's head. You hop on an elevator that many of us know to be iconic from this game's Zombies map 5, and we also get a peek into the lower levels of the Pentagon, which is super cool to see. You head over to Pack-a-Punch, and JFK himself sits down with you in a one-on-one meeting, ordering you to kill Dragovich once and for all. The voice actor killed it with this role, and they wrote JFK so well in the entirety of this game, Zombies included. As you speak with the president, you have more flashes, but they're a bit more violent this time, and it becomes clear that something is really wrong here. Maybe Mason did pass the tests, but the Russians definitely did something to his head. It is a pretty long cutscene that doesn't leave you with much to do, but you gotta give it to them. They kept the setting and dialogue very interesting, so I never really felt bored during any of this. Your goal is to kill Dragovich, as well as put a stop to the Ascension Group, a group of Nazi and Russian scientists that head the Russian space program, as well as many other scientific experiments. The CIA has planted a double agent, Weaver, to infiltrate the Ascension Group and sabotage their work, but something went wrong and your team is sent in to fix it. But before we get there, Mason was a little sidetracked. You probably noticed this theme of numbers overtaking your screen through every memory Mason has. It messes with his head, but they seem very random and we don't have much to go on, so we're thrust into Russia to figure out what happened with Weaver. Once again, I just have to say how great the graphics are in this game. It just really makes you feel like you're right there with your characters. You and Woods scout out the area around the rocket and find out what happened to Weaver. Kravchenko, Dragovich's right-hand man, has taken him hostage and shows you what happens when you don't give in to his wishes. You move into the compound with Woods and take out some unsuspecting guards to take their uniforms. With the disguise, you easily move through the compound, making your way closer to the rocket. You make your way to a building overlooking Weaver's location and have to blow your cover to take it over. On the roof, you can see Weaver below, but there's heavy Russian resistance incoming. Luckily, Woods hands you a crossbow with explosive bolts, just the right tool for the job. After taking them out, you load up a zipline into the crossbow and zip down to save Weaver. Fighting around the rocket is yet another cool area, and you and your squad rush to try to stop the rocket launch. You're just seconds too late, but thankfully, you have a plan B.
Set it up!
This'll do it. Mason, now!
Oh, shit! It's a hell of a way to test the prototype.
In the aftermath of the explosion, you make your way into the tunnels to safety and fight through a few more waves of Russian forces before going back to another cutscene with more questions. Kravchenko escaped, but according to Mason, they found Dragovich's limo and successfully blew it up, but Mason was never able to confirm the kill. The interrogators call him delusional, and you really start to wonder who to trust, your own character or those mysterious figures behind the wall. Supposedly, he didn't die in the explosion, and Mason became obsessed with finding him. He had messed with his head in Vorkuta, and he had to die because of it. Finally, those people behind the glass tell you what they want, the numbers. That's all they care about, but what does that even mean? Mason was sent to Vietnam next. Your team was supposed to get some intel on Russian activity in the area, so you, Hudson, and Woods team up to fight in the brutal backdrop of Vietnam. Woods gets a pretty badass moment that reminded me a lot of Price smoking his cigar before battle, and I think now is a good time to mention how well they've handled the characterization in this game. There's a reason that Woods is still being put into Black Ops games over a decade later. He's iconic. Not only because of stuff like riding on the side of a chopper, wearing only a military vest covered in blood, but for so many other reasons too. And all the other characters, Hudson, Mason, Reznov, they all have their own identity and are interesting in their own rights as well. Anyway, you hop on a jeep with the squad as Woods fills you in on the situation. As always, things go south pretty quick, and you're stuck on the ground fighting against waves of enemies, basically bonsai charging you just like they used to in World at War. This type of fighting is completely different from the fighting in Russia, as you basically just unload all the bullets you can in hopes that your position doesn't get overrun. The bunkers seem to be a death trap, as enemies jump down and shoot from above all around you, but luckily the US had planted some mines, so that helps to hold off the charges for now. But the enemy gets some help from Russian reinforcements, and now tanks are rolling into your position. You have to take them out with a rocket launcher, but the enemy is only getting started. Your squad makes their way to a massive downhill slope, and you have to take out the seemingly endless waves of resistance. But you get crafty, and are able to poke a hole in their forces to make your advance. As you move, your own mortars threaten your lives around you, as the battlefield is so chaotic that neither side can really tell who's winning. You push back uphill, and you don't ever have time to catch your breath. The fighting never stops. Explosions rain down around you. Fire takes over the forest that once provided you cover, and you can't see anything because of all the smoke. But still, you fight on, until your squad is finally disoriented by mortar fire. Just seconds before your team is taken out, you pull out your Python and save your friends just in time. It seems like the mission should be done there, as it feels like you've been fighting forever, but you make your way onto another field of battle and hop on an armored jeep to take a joyride around the battlefield and take out the enemy along the way. The jeep is fitted with a rocket launcher to take out some tanks, and you have plenty of other ordnance to take out the ground infantry as well. Finally, you get some air support to take out the remaining enemies, and you get to take a breath after a hard-fought battle. This mission was a very well-timed, all-out battle that was very much needed after the heavy cinematics and relatively slower last couple missions. The developers do a great job with the pacing of gameplay here, and showed that they knew very well how to do several types of gameplay dynamics. We've had straight-up cutscene storytelling, super creative and unique fighting, and all-out full-scale assault gameplay. In Vietnam, the interrogators tell you there was a Russian defector you were after. He had intel on Dragovich, and we've learned how obsessed Mason has become with him. Even though the defector and his information were likely long gone, Mason and his team still went in anyway. You fly in on a chopper into a compound that has clearly been lost, but you still make your way down as your chopper gets hit and you have to make an emergency entrance through some windows. Woods grabs you a shotgun and lets you know that it'll hold incendiaries, and for the first time you get to use the Dragon's Breath shotgun, and man is it a joy to play with. Its semi-automatic shells spray lead and flames to allow you to easily plow through any resistance. It becomes clear that Mason is the one leading this time, as Woods asks him where they're headed. Your squad is clearly loyal to you. As mentioned, this is very close to being a suicide mission, for a reward that's likely non-existent. You fight your way to the safe room to secure the informant, but it's already been breached. Still, Mason has hope. As you kick in another door, you're caught off guard by an enemy, but an unlikely ally saves you.
Mason.
Reznov, how'd you get out of Vorkuta? Never thought I'd see you alive.
Not are you, my friend. I am here with a warning. Your government would do well to heed. Dragovich is planning an attack on the west.
It turns out Reznov somehow survived Vorkuta, and he's the defector you've been searching for. Reznov informs you that Dragovich is planning an attack on America, and he tells Mason that all of the men associated with him must die. After meeting back up with Reznov, you run into some other American forces that are trying their best to hold out until evac. You take control of a radio to call in some air support and slowly push your way through resistance. And battle is just always better with Reznov by your side. His voice acting and dialogue is just so entertaining as always, and adds some more entertainment to the mix. After taking out some anti-air guns, you finally make it to evac. But as the choppers come down, the wounded are prioritized, so your team is forced to hold out in a last stand against waves of enemies, while waiting on another option for evac. The battle is pretty entertaining and intense, and after what seems like forever, you finally make your dramatic escape onto a boat and flee through the river. Reznov's intel told you all about Dragovich's key men, and their main project called Nova 6, a chemical weapon engineered primarily by Dr. Clark, a scientist that Hudson was sent to interrogate in Kowloon, yet another awesome backdrop for yet another unforgettable mission. You load into Kowloon as Hudson, with Dr. Clark already in custody. The interrogation has already begun, and Clark isn't being very cooperative, but Hudson uses his surroundings to help him talk. Clark says that he's already a dead man, and it seems that he's not really on anyone's side other than his own. He believes Dragovich's men will be here soon, and as soon as he starts talking about Nova 6, his suspicions come true. The Russians are here, but Clark has planned out his escape route very carefully, as he's always expected this will happen. Once again, I gotta point out how cool it is the range of weapons you get to use in this game. They give you so many different options through your starting weapons, what you can pick up from enemies, and all the hidden caches strewn throughout each level. The rainy rooftops of Kowloon also provide for an amazing setting, as you make your great escape from the Russians. You have to take a massive leap of faith with bullets raining down around you, and Clark reveals his stash of weaponry cleverly hidden behind a fridge. The Russians are relentless, and you have to fight your way through the endless ranks in the Hong Kong high-rises, swapping several times from outside on rooftops back to indoor close-quarters gunfights. This mission is honestly pretty difficult, as there are several levels of verticality that you're getting shot at from, so if you peek out too quickly or miss an enemy and get shot from behind, you'll get taken down with ease. You slide your way down and catch your breath for a second, but not for long, as you can't hide forever and you have to keep running. You get to experience a slow-mo slip and slide gunfight as enemies run out from below, and after taking them out you get a glimpse of a Russian helicopter sent in to scavenge Clark's research, but he's thought of everything.
My research? Well, no, thank you, Dragovich. I can clean up my own mess. You're too low on ammo. We still have a ways to go.
At another stash of weapons, Clark tells you you're getting close, but you have to make a stand and protect him while he gets a door unlocked. Some sketchy looking jumps lie on the other side of the door, and just as escape is looking possible, Clark slips too far on a wet rooftop, and before he falls, you try to get some info about the numbers. Just as he's about to tell you, the Russians finally succeed in taking him out, and you and Weaver have to finish the escape on your own. Hudson was at least able to identify one of Dragovich's men, Steiner, so the CIA is headed to Mount Yamantau. We learn that Nova 6 is a brutal chemical weapon that the Russians are actively testing in Vietnam. Mason had already learned about Nova 6 from Reznov in Vorkuta. You flash back to the prison, to Reznov telling a heartfelt story about his family long ago. Even then, Reznov's hatred for Dragovich was present, and you flash back to a time before Vorkuta, a time when Reznov was a hero of Mother Russia, along with Dmitry Petrenko, a character you played as in World at War. In the Arctic Circle, your team trudges through the snow to take out some of the last Nazis left. Kravchenko and Dragovich show their pettiness towards Reznov and his comrades, as they seem jealous of his bravado earned from your battles in World at War. They inform you that one German scientist, Steiner, has decided to cooperate with the Russians, and you're here to extract him. On the transport, Reznov reminisces on what started the animosity between him and Dragovich. They had promised reinforcements to Reznov and his men, but in hopes of removing Reznov as a threat, they didn't keep that promise. Russia didn't seem to share the same appreciation for Petrenko's heroic actions in World War II, and you and Reznov have to take orders from Dragovich and fight through the German defenses in the heavy snow to secure Steiner. You get the iconic PPSH in hand, yet another memorable location in the Arctic Circle, and relentlessly advance through the German ranks, leaving no one alive, even if they have their hands up for surrender. You get to call in some mortar strikes to soften up the enemy, and finally you make it to the building where Steiner is hiding. He's already confident in his position alongside Dragovich, as he commands you around like you mean nothing. Reznov thought of killing him right there, but as we know, Reznov's dedication to Russia during this time trumped all other feelings. You make your way to an abandoned ship that houses what's left of the Nova 6 project. It's eerily quiet, and you and Dmitry escort the others, leading only with a pistol and a flashlight. You see rockets still loaded with the gas, and learn that the Nazis were ready to launch, but Russia had just taken Berlin, so they attempted to destroy the ship instead. They had found what they were looking for, but the careless Russians wanted to see the effects of Nova 6 for themselves, and there was only one option for test subjects.
The German weapon of mass destruction now belonged to Mother Russia. Or so it seemed. Our victory was to be short-lived. Dragovich wanted to see the effects of the poison firsthand. It was also an opportunity to remove a thorn in his side. I had long known of their distrust. What kind of men they were. It was a betrayal I should have foreseen. Dimitri Treyarch was a hero. He deserved the hero's death. Instead of giving his life for the glory of the motherland, he died for nothing. Like an animal.
As the betrayal is realized, others in search of the weapon arrive, and you and what's left of your team fight through both sides of the battle, in an enemy of my enemy situation. Your team rigs the vessel to blow, as you believe neither side should have such a terrible weapon. You make your daring escape into the endless ice wastes of the Arctic Circle, leaving behind your comrade Dmitri, who had fought by your side through all of World War II. Now you understand the deep hatred Reznov has for these men, and he repeats the phrase you've been hearing so often. Dragovich, Kravchenko, Steiner, all must die. Back in Vietnam, your team had been shot down, and the interrogators seem very interested in Reznov's well-being. You load into the jungle in a down chopper on the verge of drowning. You and Woods push your way out with the help of Reznov, and you swim your way up to take control of a Viet Cong boat. After the initial fighting, you, Woods, and Reznov regroup and contact Bowman with a new plan. You move quietly through the shallow waters, taking out enemies with your knife, and eventually meet up with Bowman. You split again with plans to meet back up outside the compound that Kravchenko could be hiding in. Once again, you and Woods take to the waters and plant some C4 for later. You stumble upon some unsuspecting Viet Cong soldiers, but you can't risk leaving them, so you and Woods take them out. In the water again, you plant some more explosives, then quickly meet back up with your squad to begin the real assault. The detonation marks the start of the battle, and you charge guns blazing into a village swarming with Viet Cong soldiers. Enemies flood in from everywhere, and you quickly find some spider holes dug out of the ground where reinforcements are emerging. After taking care of them, you move on to the final objective before Kravchenko, an anti-air gun that's preventing air support for your squad. You push to the end of the village and find a tunnel system the enemy is using to maneuver around the battlefield unseen. You go down with one of your squad members, carrying a pistol and a flashlight, and crawl through the darkness in extremely cramped spaces. I can't imagine what this would be like in real life. It would already be enough that it's so claustrophobic and dark, not to mention the heat and humidity and bugs as well. But on top of all that, the real threat of the Viet Cong that could be lurking around each corner. You could literally stumble into a meeting place or barracks type area any second, and even if you don't, it's probable that you could get lost anyways. Back to the gameplay, you get a jump scare when Reznov hops down into the tunnel, and your squad mate is not very happy about it. As he's distracted from the objective at hand, an enemy jumps out from behind a wall and takes him out, leaving you alone. As you move, Viet Cong pop out all over, so you have to be on guard at all times. This mission does a great job of keeping your heart rate up for sure. You meet back up with Reznov and find a hidden passage that leads to Kravchenko's workstation, where it looks like he left in a hurry. There's plenty of intel to gather, but the tunnels start to explode, as you realize Kravchenko knew you would come in, and he rigged it to blow. You work your way out of the tunnels and emerge on a cliffside, but luckily Woods sweeps in for a quick pickup.
Shit! BC Mason! Where are you, Woods? Come on!
Back in the interrogation, the people behind the glass confirm that you learned that Kravchenko had been working in Vietnam. But once you mention Reznov again, they tell you that he can't be trusted. This comes as a surprise because it seems like he's only been helpful so far, helping the squad track down their targets, providing them with a dossier on Clark, and so much more. But they say that Reznov isn't who Mason thinks he is, but Mason isn't having it. Reznov is his friend, his brother. They escaped for Kuta together. How could he not trust him? The interrogators lose their cool and finally say that the world is on the brink of war, but Mason has no idea what they're talking about. We don't even know who they are, and Mason can't ever stay focused for long because he keeps hearing the numbers. Finally, they shed some light on what's happening. Supposedly, the numbers are a broadcast, and Mason has been brainwashed by the Russians. With that revelation, you head back to Vietnam, where the CIA had downed a Russian plane that was carrying Nova 6, and your team is sent in to secure the wreckage. You load into a staging area, and head over to the river where your squad hops on a boat. It's your normal team, Woods, Bowman, and Reznov, with one added member manning the gun at the front of the boat. You take the wheel and move along the river with a massive force and to secure the wreckage, indicating just how important this mission is to the US side. You get to drive the boat around and fire your light machine gun and missile combo at the enemies that have set up along the riverbank, and your invasion team makes easy work of them. I've always appreciated that the stuff that you shoot actually blows up and has environmental effects that makes you feel the impact of your actions. It's really just rinse and repeat gameplay for the most part, which isn't a complaint at all. It's high octane, guns blazing battle, which always deserves a spot in every COD campaign. Some enemies pop up along the river, you blow them up, and you move forward. Reznov's ever-present words of encouragement get you through the fighting, all the way to the end of the road, where unfortunately, you lose the newest member of your team. The reactions really add some humanity to your team that has so far seemed nearly impervious to any emotion. You finally head back to shore, and you see the plane crash in the distance. But of course, there are going to be heavy enemy defenses you'll have to fight through first to get there. Yet again, the game shows off with its graphics, and it really feels like you're right there in the dense jungle with how great the game looks. You get a flashback to World at War with snipers shooting at you from the trees, which I gotta say is very cool, but I do not miss that at all. World at War took so long to finish because I didn't want to play on Recruit, so it really did feel like PTSD when those guys popped up in this game, but thankfully it wasn't quite as bad this time. As you get closer to the crash site, Russian reinforcements move in, but they're too late and your team takes them out with ease. You make it to the plane and get a horrifying little sequence where you have to make your way on the dangling plane wing, but once inside you secure what you came for, and yet another wave of enemies is moving in quick. You provide support from the wreckage, and it's a pretty cool mix-up to the fighting we're used to. You're much higher up than the enemy, and the long-distance fight is a nice change of pace, but things aren't perfect for long.
He's down! Look out! Brace yourself, Mason!
Dragovich, Kravchenko. It's been too long, Mason. We must make up for lost time.
Mason is captured yet again and is presumed dead by the CIA. With Mason out of the picture, Hudson has no choice but to continue the hunt for Nova 6, which took him to a facility in Mount Yamantau. Steiner was there, and that's where Hudson learned about the numbers. And Mason finally realizes that the numbers in his head are in fact real, and he's the only one that knows where the broadcast station might be. He's the only one that can save the world from a disastrous chemical attack and likely world war to follow. You load in not to Yamantau, but instead to an Air Force base in California. You're a pilot of a Blackbird, one of the fastest planes ever made. You get a short takeoff sequence with the plane, and a cutscene follows to give you a glimpse of just how high you are and how fast you're moving. If you've ever played multiplayer, you know that this plane is used to provide some detailed recon for the teams on the ground. You take control of one of the cameras, and get to lead your squad through the compound while looking over them from above. I will say it's definitely not as fun as getting to take control of an AC-130, but it still is a very cool addition to the list of gameplay styles Black Ops 1 provides. You transfer back to the team on the ground as the enemy approaches the building you led them to from the air. As you take them out, I will say I think this would have been an awesome opportunity to take this mission to the next level if they would have included a bit more of the recon aspect while you're on the ground. Imagine if the enemies marked by the Blackbird were highlighted through walls, or even if they just threw up the radar for multiplayer for this mission and effectively gave you an advanced UAV when the Blackbird was there. I think that would have been a really nice touch to add a bit more dynamics to the ground portions and make you really feel extra thankful that the Blackbird was there. Anyway, with the enemies handled, you head back to the sky and it's rinse and repeat. You order the squad ahead, carefully controlling their movements so they don't get caught in the open until you transfer back to the ground squad. You take out some enemies, cut the communications for the compound, and head right back up to the sky. After leading the squad ahead for a bit longer, you get a brief intermission and the real operation begins. You load in as Hudson, with a crossbow in hand, laying in the snow as the unsuspecting enemies move by you. The snowy Ural Mountains are just another awesome setting, and this game does such a great job of having so much diversity with locations, while still making it feel believable rather than forced. You hook up to some railing with your team and rappel down the mountainside until you finally make your dramatic entrance into the compound. With the small station secure, you continue your way down the mountain until you get to a comm station, where you need to use your crossbow to take out some more enemies without being seen. The crossbow is super satisfying to use, and just in case you do get caught, you have some explosive bolts in your back pocket. After taking out the guards outside, you make your way to the main comms building and have some heavy firefights inside. With the resistance taken care of, you relieve the satellite of its electricity and head out to make your way to the base of the mountain. But one Russian soldier has decided to camp out in the snow with an RPG, and he complicates things.
Avalanche! Hudson, run! Run!
You land at the foot of the mountain, where the main staging grounds of this compound really is. The resistance is heaviest here, and now the enemy knows you're here, so you have to fight your way through waves of hostiles. You finally reach the command station, and see that they're planning several Nova 6 attacks on key cities all throughout the US. But just as you make the discovery, the place locks down. It's all rigged to blow, and Steiner comes on the comms, letting you know that Dragovich is getting rid of everyone and everything connected to Project Nova, including Steiner himself. Steiner reveals that in just 36 hours, Russian sleeper agents across America will be given orders via the numbers broadcast system to carry out attacks, and only Steiner can tell them how to stop it. Steiner tells us that he's at Rebirth Island in the Aral Sea, and that if we can save him, he may tell us how to stop the numbers. With that, you make your escape and hop on a machine gun turret on the back of a truck to cover your escape, as an avalanche takes out what remains of the base, covering up any evidence that would have been left. Back in the interrogation room, so many things are starting to click. The numbers are a broadcast for sleeper agents used by the Russians, which is why Mason's head is so messed up. Things must have went wrong with the brainwashing, and it must not have been fully effective for some reason. Mason is the key to stopping these attacks on US soil, and the interrogators are starting to lose their patience as the attacks grow ever closer. Every time they seem to be making progress, they lose them again, and we get another flashback to Vietnam, where Mason and Woods have been captured. You and Woods are released from your bamboo cages and dragged to a table to play some good old Russian roulette. Unfortunately, Bowman gets too disrespectful, and the Spetsnaz leader has had enough. Next up is Woods, and this time you're forced to play, as you know the consequences if you refuse. The pure and raw emotions of this scene really make you think about some of the atrocities committed with POWs, likely on both sides. It really is one of the most memorable parts in this entire story. As Woods is saved by fortune, Mason sees the bullet is in place to fire this time, and uses that to take out the soldier closest, and take out the other guards that are frozen with surprise. The Russian leader runs away, and you and Woods go on the hunt for vengeance as you chase after him. The enemies don't stand a chance against the pissed off duo of Mason and Woods, as you shred through the resistance in the elaborate tunnel systems of Vietnam. Near the exit of the tunnel, you finally catch up to the Spetsnaz leader, and give him the ending he deserves. You and Woods hop out of the tunnel to a small enemy camp with a massive chopper sitting right for the taking right in the middle. Woods says exactly what you were hoping for. The plan is to get rid of everyone and take the chopper to cause as much havoc as possible. All you see is red after being taken hostage the second time, so a chopper with that much ordnance makes you feel like a kid on Christmas. Taking control of the chopper is overwhelming as there are a million gauges and buttons in front of you, but thankfully Woods does take control while you take off and only hands over the stick once you get airborne. Kravchenko's compound is still the end goal, but now with the chopper in your control, you may as well take out all the enemies you can along the river. You get full control of the chopper, controlling its movement and both the minigun and rockets that come along with it. There's really not much else to say. You swing around the river in the chopper and unload unlimited ammo into the enemies below. Controlling the chopper feels great, and the guns feel even better. I would say this mission does the classic shock and awe style that's become a staple in each Call of Duty game very well. The camps set up along the river provide for plenty of things to blow up, and a lot of them actually react once you've unloaded enough ordnance into them. Finally, you run into a massive setup of Vietnamese networks that makes your mission all the better. Now you have even more stuff to blow up, and it really makes you feel like you're accomplishing something for the war as a whole. You take out bridges, gas lines, tunnels, and anything else you lay your eyes on. Finally, you move on to the final objective, Kravchenko's compound. You and Woods set down the chopper in a clearing in the jungle and take back to the ground to continue the fighting. Inside the cave, you hear some prisoners inside and quickly move to get them out. Of course, somehow Reznov is here, and he lets you know that Kravchenko is in fact at the compound, and you need to move quickly before he gets away. Your energy for the fight is reinvigorated, and you make quick work of the final stand of the Russians before the control room where Kravchenko is hiding. You rush forward and kick open the door recklessly, and Kravchenko catches you off guard. He disorients you and takes down Woods as well, but as he's beating you, he pauses for a second, recognizing you back from your time with him in Vorkuta. The brief pause is all Woods needs, and he quickly takes advantage. But Kravchenko gets the last laugh while dragging Woods to the other side with him. And especially after the crazy mission you just had, it really felt like you both were invincible. So I know this caught a lot of us off guard. After a brief hallucination, Mason realizes he's just seeing Reznov, it's not actually Woods. And with that, you're back in the interrogation room. They tell you that you successfully killed Kravchenko, but all of your team died. Of course, Reznov is still with you, but they don't seem to acknowledge that. The interrogators ask why Mason went to Rebirth Island next. He wasn't supposed to go, and the rest of the CIA were already on mission to secure Steiner, so it wasn't necessary for him to be there. Finally, Mason tells them what Reznov has been saying all along. All of them must die, but the CIA wanted them alive, and Mason went against that. And finally, he says something strange. The numbers told him to go to Rebirth and kill Steiner. The interrogators desperately try one last time to get Mason to tell them about the broadcast station, but they've already lost him, and you flash back to Rebirth Island with Reznov at your side. You sneak in through some of the cargo crates that seem to be endless on the island. Reznov tells you that this is the source of Nova 6, and they're prepping the cargo for shipment out, no doubt to be used in the attacks against the US. As your crate is loaded onto the docks, you see that some of the other crates contain what seems to be hundreds of monkeys, no doubt being used for testing with the horrible chemicals. Also, a little flash forward to the first Zombies DLC for this game that would feature the little guys running rampant around the Ascension facility to steal your perks. You follow Reznov's lead and take out any enemies in your way as you dash from spot to spot to avoid the spotlight. As you move, you see that the enemy has started to evacuate, so they must know you're here. You get some heart-stopping moments as you try to sneak through the facility, and finally the base is on full alert, but not because of you. The CIA have arrived, and now it's a race to get to Steiner. Down an elevator shaft, you arrive at some familiar testing facilities for the zombies lovers out there, and this is just yet another awesome place to add to the seemingly never-ending list of great settings they've came up with in this game. The testing facility is so well done. The level of detail with all the different things going on is honestly impressive. You could wander around this place for a while and not get bored. The CIA contact you as they quickly catch wind that you and Reznov are there, but you have your eyes set on Steiner and continue to move forward. Finally, with the control room in sight, nothing will stop you and Reznov, and you barge your way in to see Steiner frantically pleading over the radio.
No longer essential to his plans are being executed. You must hurry before they kill me too!
Friedrich Steiner. This is the end.
I know you. Vorkuta. You don't know what we did to you.
Mason, talk to me.
Your evil has claimed the lives of many good men. No longer.
Killing me will not stop Nova. I do not care about Nova. My name is Victor Reznov. And I will have my revenge.
Fuck. I swear to God, that's how Steiner died. Reznov killed him right in front of me!
You're lying, Mason. You killed Steiner. We know you did.
As Reznov pulls the trigger, you flash back to the interrogation, as they tell you that you killed Steiner, not Reznov. And now you flash back to 20 minutes before Steiner dies, this time with Hudson and the CIA. It's the polar opposite of the infiltration with Reznov and Mason. You and a massive force go all out into the facility with you at the helm of a massive gun on an armored vehicle. You mow down any resistance that stands in your way until finally a chopper takes out your truck. As you recover, the Russians unleash Nova 6, but your team came prepared with hazmat suits. The CIA has to fight through thick fog, but they've thought of everything, and thankfully you have a thermal sight ready to go. You're even more vulnerable to weapons, as any bullet compromise your hazmat suit and leave you exposed to the gas. The developers added some great detail here with the mask cracking the more damage you take instead of the normal blood taking over your screen. There really are so many small things that make this game so great. You pick up a stray rocket launcher to take out some enemy choppers that are pinning down your team, and then continue down deeper into the facility. As you make it to the main building, you see the tie-ins when Hudson contacts Mason. You make it through decontamination and head down to see the aftermath Mason and Reznov left behind in the testing facility. It's a race to Steiner, and now you realize that Steiner was trying to contact the CIA, as Mason busted through the door earlier. As Hudson and Weaver make their way to Steiner, you see Mason attacking Steiner, but they're behind bulletproof glass and you can't get to him in time. As the scene replays from Hudson's perspective, you finally see the truth. Mason did kill Steiner. Reznov was never there. Now that Steiner's dead, Mason is the only chance they have at stopping the broadcast. You get a brief flashback from Reznov, then you're back in the interrogation room. The people behind the glass are on their last straw. The world is on the brink of war, and Mason is still delusional. Finally, in a last-ditch effort, they open the door and reveal another massive truth that's been hidden from us the entire game.
Not yet. I have one more card to play.
Get out of here, Weaver. Tell them I failed.
You want to die with him? Your choice.
Damn it! Why can't you remember? Reznov's dead, Mason. Did you hear me? He's dead! Weaver's right. We're out of time. The Russians fucked you up. I know you. You're not a traitor.
Hudson and Weaver reveal themselves and come out to tell you that Reznov is dead, and whatever the Russians did, they know it's not your fault. As you make your way out of the interrogation room, you stumble through the lower levels of the Pentagon, with your head spinning with all the revelations coming at once. You flash back to Vorkuta as Steiner explains that Mason has successfully trained to translate the numbers. But Steiner explains that Mason has an unusual amount of willpower, as he's fought back much more than most others. Because of this, sometimes Mason doesn't always react to the numbers the way he should. So, Dragovich tosses him to the side, back into the depths of Vorkuta. Back in the Pentagon, you continue your journey with plenty of voices in your head, and finally you make it to a room filled with screens playing memories of Reznov, the final message being that Reznov is still your brother. The visuals here are really awesome, and they do a great job of letting you really sit with what you've learned, and let you journey back through the story with the added context you have now. Finally, on a table in Vorkuta, Reznov stands over you. You learn that he used the brainwashing power for his own plans, engraving in your brain that phrase you've been hearing over and over and over. All of them must die. Reznov died all those years ago in Vorkuta, and every memory since has been a hallucination due to his own brainwashing efforts. Finally, the brainwashing seems to be broken. The Nova 6 strike could happen any second, and Mason is the last chance the Americans have at stopping countless chemical attacks. And it all comes rushing back, this time without the fog of the brainwash looming over you. The Cubans allow the Russians to set up a broadcast base permanently in their territory, and you see the name of a ship from the first time you were captured and gifted to the Russians such a long time ago. With just a few hours left on the countdown, we get an intro cinematic from some of the most important people in the story. With JFK's and Reznov's words of wisdom, you load in at the helm of a chopper gunner and begin your assault on the Rizalka. Once again, they do this Sentry type gameplay so well. There are plenty of things to shoot at, and many of them react and explode once you hit them enough. Your attack force takes out all the defenses on the deck, and some of the choppers start to unload their teams onto the ship to attack on the ground. You stay in the air to provide cover fire, and have to take out waves of enemies as your team on the boat progresses. An enemy chopper spawns in out of nowhere, and you're forced to have a 1v1 in the skies, but you take each other out, and you're forced to make an emergency landing. Now that the enemy knows you're here, they have reinforcements flooding in seemingly out of thin air. Luckily, another well-placed rocket launcher is right there for you when some enemy helicopters show up. As you move to the lower decks, worry starts to grow that this isn't really the broadcast station. Sure, they had some heavy defenses, but there's just not enough going on for it to be here. However, once you get to the bottom, you find that the ship has quite a bit more to it than anyone thought. The real station is underground, and not only is it a broadcast station, it's a massive supply depot for the entire Russian fleet as well. Once again, I can't stress enough how many awesome places the development team came up with for the setting of this story. They did such a wonderful job delivering not just on the gameplay, but on so many other creative aspects as well. Your team submerges into the depths to the real station to end the broadcast and end Dragovich once and for all. Up above on the surface, the American forces have been called in for an airstrike, even though your team is still down in the station below. Mason thought it was too important to confirm the kill, and rightfully so, as he thought he killed Dragovich many years ago, but they were never able to confirm it then. Your team is unstoppable as you relentlessly push forward towards the command station. As the ship falls to pieces around you, you finally find the source of the numbers and shut it off once and for all, but your mission doesn't end there.
Dragovich.
You should have been my finest agent. It would have all been so much simpler.
Dragovich!
Yes! I'm gonna kill you!
Trying to fuck with my mind! Wait!
You don't know anything!
Trying to turn me against my own! Like to make me kill my own president! Pride? Come on, Mason! Mason, this way! Keep moving!
With Dragovich eliminated, you and Hudson stumble your way out of the wreckage that was once the station and desperately swim to the surface. As you swim, Reznov congratulates you for your success, and you realize it's all finally over. On the surface, you see the full might of the American fleet, and get a pretty awesome outro for an absolutely beautiful game. The final footage leaves you wondering, is Mason the one that assassinated JFK? Did the Russians actually succeed, at least with that aspect of their plan? At least for now, we know that they didn't succeed with the horrible Nova 6 attacks and Mason's personal agenda. Ending all the men involved with the Nova 6 project has been completed. This game took Call of Duty to an area of storytelling that had never been done before in the franchise. And not only that, but they did it perfectly on their first try. The story was captivating from the first second. The ties to history were done in such a compelling way. The twists and turns of the story are the best in the franchise. The characters are memorable, the graphics are stellar, the music is fire. The game was amazing. I will be the first to say that I'm biased towards the Modern Warfare series just because when I played these games I was so young that genuinely the Black Ops style of storytelling scared me. So the level of nostalgia that I have for the Modern Warfare series is just much higher than Black Ops. But there's no denying how great this game is, and I honestly can say I don't definitively like either one more than the other. Woods and Mason are right there alongside Soap and Price for the best characters in the franchise. The twist of learning that Reznov wasn't real and Mason has been brainwashed is done so well. Going back, you can see how obvious it should have been, but most of us never caught on. No one on your team ever acknowledges Reznov when he speaks. They call you crazy for reacting to things Reznov does, and it's just really cool to see stuff like that on your subsequent playthroughs. There were so many things that kept you on the edge of your seat all game. Who were the people behind the glass? What did the numbers mean? And they didn't just stop with one or two aspects. For me, the unique style of storytelling is what stands out the most, so it's easy to focus on that, but we can't forget that pretty much every other part of this game was just as good too. The variety of gameplay is impressive. I definitely never felt bored with the gameplay. You fought in all-out assaults, stealth missions, in tunnels and helicopters, underwater, with makeshift weapons, alone, in a team, and so much more. Looking back on this game has brought a new level of appreciation that I didn't really have before. It's so crazy that they took such a risk with changing the formula for Call of Duty stories, and I can't think of one thing that I would do to change this game that could make it better. Honestly, when I set out to do this, I had it set in my mind that Modern Warfare 2 is my favorite campaign ever, and while I don't think that will ever change due to the nostalgia I have for it, I can't give you a single reason why Black Ops 1 isn't just as good. And I can definitely see where you're coming from if you say that this is your favorite Call of Duty game of all time. With that said, it's time to rank it, and I'd be lying to myself if I didn't do this, so I'm giving Black Ops 1 a 10 out of 10, S tier.